the demo on how to build a teapot on the wheel while Xena is filling the kiln. Okay, so I've centered a large piece of clay because what you can do from one piece of clay, you can make the base or the body, and you can make the spout and the lid from the same piece. So when you start, everybody does something different. Sometimes people prefer to make the spout or the lid first. Brady, can you go turn that music down a little bit, please? I like to do the lid, and then I like to do the spout, and then I do the body from the same piece of clay. So if I want to start with the lid, I'm going to build it off the hump, which means that... Oh, hang on. This skirt is inhibiting my motions here. Okay. Bad time for a video. Alright. So if I build it off the hump, I'm going to use just the top section of clay. I've centered all of it. If usually you're going to build off the hump, you don't have to center the whole thing, but I prefer to do that just so it's 100% sure thing. So I'm going to start with push my finger in here. And so I'm going to form the lid from this piece of clay here, and this is my hump. Okay, so as long as the top is centered, you're good to go. And I don't know the size of my teapot yet because I've not made the base yet, so I'm going to make a pretty large lid because I think I want to make a pretty large teapot. If you're making a smaller teapot, of course you do not need a lid this large. Of course you notice it's going pretty slow. If I turn it up like this, it's going to be a little bit harder to handle. Okay? It's not getting very fast, actually. Concerning. Anyways. There we go. So I want to thin this out just a little bit. I do have a piece of clay underneath that's obviously connecting the lid to the hump. I don't want that to get too skinny because then this part that flares out is just going to fall off because it'll become a little bit too weak. So you got to be careful about that. And I can trim that down later, but I'll show you that in a second.
It's going to be a big teapot.
Yes, it is going to be a big teapot. And I'm using my nail to make an edge just to kind of clean it up a little bit. You'll definitely want to watch the video that I put on our YouTube site of TJ Long, who did this last time he came. He made some smaller lids, and he does them really well. He made a little handle on top of his, but I'm going to do that from the bottom part after I detach the lid. Alright, so this hasn't changed too much, so I'm going to cut it off. And how you do that, just while it's still going kind of slow, got to come in here, pull this through. Better to turn it off before you take it off if you're scared that you might mess it up. So then what will happen is this is going to be the bottom of my lid, and I'm going to trim off all this clay later. So it will sit like this on my teapot. But for now, it's too wet for me to do anything to it, so I'm going to just set it aside with this chunk of clay that I will trim off later, okay? Be very gentle with it. We'll get rid of that so it looks a little better. Most of you probably won't be making lids that big, but that is how you form it and detach it off the hump. And let's turn this back on. So we might need to do a little bit of recentering to this piece because now I can make my spout.
Touch.
Just turn it up fast enough and get it centered. wonder what Eric's gonna do with his broken hand. It's like cast on, you can't really do this anymore. Alright. Having some centering problems on the bottom. Oh, God damn pig. Alright. Almost have it. So now, I'm also going to do the spout off the hump. I'm going to go in and, again, divide a piece from the top. And I'll need a pretty large spout because I have a large lid, meaning it'll be a large teapot. So I'm going to go in and just use this top portion here. Some people will wedge a couple big pieces of clay, and then they will make a series of spouts, a series of lids, and then they'll mix and match to see which ones fit the base the best and what they like. Or they could make, you know, they could be making like 2 or 3 teapots at the same time. So again, I'm just showing you one at a time here. But so then you can either use your finger, or you could use a brush handle or something. But you'll put that inside, and then you form the spout over that to get a small opening. Oh, pulled it off. Oh well, could have been worse. I squeezed it too tight around my finger. So I can use this portion here. That sounds great. Wondering how to get a small opening, that is usually how you do it. And you can always go in and squeeze it here and then pull up, and it'll shape up for you. And I'm not sure how big my opening is all the way down. Brady, will you get me a large brush that has a long brush handle? Please. I'm going to try to thin out some of the walls of this real quick here. I can reshape it. It's getting a little bit off center, unfortunately. And if I like this spout, I'll get ready to cut it off here in a few minutes. I'm going to make a little bit of a flare end, because I want it to be a little bit different than a straight spout. This might help the water pour out easier too. We'll find out. We will find out. And I want some throwing lines in there, so I'm going to run my hands across there. Alright, now I'll be ready to cut this part off too. And again, I cut off too much. I will have to trim it off later. Let's figure out a nice way to take this off without messing it up. Alright, so of course my opening is right here. So all of this clay needs to be trimmed away later. But for now I've got the shape of the spout I want. It might be the right size depending on the size of the base I make. Probably going to be more of a tall skinny teapot, a large opening but a small spout at this point. So of course I'll set this aside too. And we can work on this part here for the base. And this is just going to be the normal way that you know how to throw, okay? And I might not have enough clay here to make the size teapot that I want, but we'll give it a shot.
Very small.
It's a little bit small. Opening up the center. And since I want it to go straight and I want it to be tall, I'm not going to pull out this way on the bottom because I want a skinny base down there. So I can kind of guesstimate that that's probably a little bit too thick. I'm going to push down a little bit more. Can you guys see from back there? Yeah. Squeeze the sides a little bit so now I can bring up the walls. A little bit wobbly on me here. I want to go slower for this so I can control a little bit more. I'm using my knuckle for the outside and I'm supporting it with the inside. Now, let's look at the size of my lid in comparison to my my teapot base right now. What's going to happen,
It's going to be too big.
I will probably have to widen it up, because of course this is probably about that big compared to my teapot here. Brady, again, will you go over to the supplies and grab the calipers? They look like tongs.
Oh, those are the things that I asked you about?
Yep. Yep, you can use those to measure the opening,
Where are they?
the size of the opening to the size of the spout. They're over there by the loop tools and the sponges.
That's too funny.
Yep. How long is this video so far?
14.
14 minutes. Hopefully it's not too big to upload to YouTube. Alright, so with this, you can adjust here. So say pull those out. That's the size of my opening, and then you will tighten the wing nut on it so it stays in that spot, hopefully. And then you would hold it up to your lid and be like, well, lid's a little bit too big for that. Okay, so if you want to tweak this, then you can measure it again to make sure that it matches.
Could I just trim the lid down?
I could, yeah. Could, yep. I probably have to do that because this is going to be too small, but I'm going to try, though, to make it a little bit bigger here.
It'll just be on.
flatten out the bottom a little bit here because I got some ridges I don't want. Get that finished first before I do anything else. Looks like I don't have enough clay on the top to be able to flare it out too much. I'm going to pull it up one more time. Try to go up and out this time. Alright, let's see what I got here. I'm a little bit too thick right here, so I'll probably use some of that clay. Let's get a nice little wobble. A little bit wider. Might work if I trim down the lid a little bit. Soak this water up here. Alright, so I'm going to leave those throwing lines because I like those. If you want to smooth them out, you can, of course. This would be the time that if you want to add some kind of design on the wheel, you'll be able to do that now to the outside of it. So usually, if you have a thick enough lip, which this is on the verge of not being thick enough, you need to make a gallery edge. And that means that you'll have to make a ridge that comes straight across and goes up. So then it will fit the lid. When you set the lid in there, it will help it from sliding around, and hopefully it will seal the water in as you're pouring the teapot. So I'm going to take my fingernail, I'm going to press it in there, support from my right hand also. Just making a little edge that makes a nice resting spot for the lid. Of course, you've got to tweak the lid to make it fit that edge if you want to actually use the gallery edge. Last quarter, a lot of the kids had so much trouble with this. I don't know how to do the gallery edge. What is that? I probably showed them about a dozen times, and they just could not get it. Really, you just steady your hands there so you can put a dent on the top. Right, and I have a little lip that's wobbly, so let's get my needle tool here. It's a chocolate ribbon. There it goes. Let's try round two. Let's try the index fingernail instead of the thumbnail this time. Of course, it's pretty shallow, but that will hopefully be just enough to make it fit well. Alright. Any other suggestions for the viewing gallery, Sabrina? No? Alright, so after I'm done with this, I will leave this on here. I'm going to trim the foot with my turning tool. Zena hates these. It's actually spinning the opposite way. I'll use this way. I can clean that up down there a little bit. I will tweak the lid and the spout. Can you show those on the video? I'm going to trim those, clean them up, and then I will show you guys how to attach the pieces later after this has been weather hard and ready to go, okay? So that's how you do all the pieces on the wheel, and of course I did that all from one chunk of clay. If you're not comfortable with centering a big piece of clay, then start with a smaller one, and you might have to, you know, make like 3 or 4 chunks of clay, wedge them, and then that way you can center them, make something, and then pull it off, put another piece of clay on there, okay? Any questions?